Hello, YouTube. I'm just waiting for my TikTok people to turn up. Got the dishwasher going. I don't know why. I always seem to do a live when I got a dishwasher going. Hello. Oh, I don't recognize either of your names. I think I remember Mel. Oh, and I can't pronounce that name. I'm trying to remember some of your names. And of course, they're not your names, a lot of them, they're handles, right? Like I know you're not user 9045555. Okay, so while we're waiting, I'd love to know where you're from. Hi, Nora, you've been here before. Emmy, hi, Emmy. I'd love to know where you're from. I'm here in Vancouver, Canada, and it's rainy and cold. And I bought these really thin summer pants and wore them this morning. I was freezing, so learned my lesson. Because it's, halfway through June. Hi, Sweden. I got 2 people from Sweden. I'm half Norwegian, so we're kind of neighbors genetically. South Africa, hi, South Africa. You've been here before, haven't you? I think so. Get quite a few people from South Africa. Oregon, hi, Oregon. We're sort of neighbors if you hop over Washington State. I like Portland. I've been there. I've only been there once. It was a long time ago. It's changed a lot since then, I've heard. West Clare, Ireland, 10:30 p.m. Wow. I lived in Australia for 20 years, so I got used to that big time zone. And we would be Christmas, like we were always a day ahead there. So it'd be Christmas, and it was just Christmas Eve back in Canada. And so I'm used to big time zones. It was actually, we were 18 hours ahead. So I used to add 6 hours, and then it was yesterday. That's how I did it. Okay. Ooh, small group so far. I never know how many people are going to turn up. I never know what's going on. When I first came on here, they were much bigger audiences because I had them scheduled. And I just don't do that anymore. I don't schedule. As soon as I stopped scheduling them, they dropped off a lot because no one ever knows when I'm going to be on. But it's just with my time with clients, and then I got busy, and it just got hard to take up those slots. I might do that again. I might schedule them. I know a lot of people have asked me to do that, so they know that they can turn up, if they can turn up or not. But anyway, it's just I kind of do what I work around my coaching clients. Anyway, I'm going to get going now. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on my website, it's bratbusters.com. So I got my dishwasher going. You can hire me for coaching, buy one of my courses, or download my free behavior board. That's on my website on the homepage. So it's bratbusters.com. So I actually have a separate room I could use as my office, and it's where the view is. It's a sunroom, but I like to be where everything's happening. So I don't want to be in a different room in my office. I don't know why. So yeah. Okay, so parenting questions. Ask away. Whatever you want to know, I'll do my best. I don't know everything, but I know enough to sort of answer most questions. 2-year-old's about to turn 3 next month and is turning into a different toddler. My parenting hasn't changed. Oh, well, they have. When they turn 3, they often discover their power. They're getting better at language, and they're getting to know you. They don't usually get like that unless you're sort of weaker. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Unless they think they can pull it over on you. That's sort of the way it goes. But yeah, my kids started getting easier at 3 because I was already kind of a leader already. But it's at 3 they discover, hey, you're not a leader. I think I could take over here. That's what sort of happens. So work on your leadership skills. Remember, it's never about them. It's always about you. It just always is. I managed to get respect with all the kids, hundreds of kids I worked with. It wasn't about them. It was about me. And I was never handed an easy one. No one once ever said, here's an easy one, Lisa. Not once, not ever. They were always the more feisty, challenging kids. Do you have any parenting advice for one with a daughter with ADHD? It's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. So anything I'm saying has to do with ADHD or ODD, not autism. Autism's different. You're really inspiring. Oh, I'm reading the right comment here. I love your content. I missed your lives every time. So glad to be here now. Well, welcome, welcome. I'm going to say that wrong, so I'd rather not say it than say it wrong. I had a client from Mexico, And I called the poor guy Jesus. So, but he was used to it. It was, of course, Jesus, and it's pronounced Jesus. So yeah, that was embarrassing. And I knew better. Like it just came out. So yeah, I learned. That was about 15, 16 years ago. And I hate that. I just hate it. It just sounded so awful. He laughed. Okay. What should you do during a tantrum? Just stand there, ESP, if it's in public, especially if it's in public. Okay, this is what I do. This is my favorite tantrum tool. It's a nail file. So let's say a kid's having a tantrum and it's out in public, so long as it's not somewhere where you're disturbing people. If it's in a restaurant, you take them out to the parking lot or in the car, so you're not disturbing people. But this is what I look like. This is what the toddler sees. I'll be up higher, obviously. This is me. I might look down every so often. Now, the reason I'm not on a phone, the reason I'm not talking to someone, I think that's dismissive and rude. I want them to know that I'm here. I know what you're doing, but I'm just waiting. I'm modeling calm behavior. I'm modeling what I want from them. You lead, they will follow eventually. Okay, that's the idea. And now, as soon as they stop having their tantrum, I would say something like this. Okay, you all done? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to read a book? Do you want to go back in the restaurant? Don't discuss the tantrum. There's no point. If you can come up with a really good point, I'll agree with you, but not once has ever anyone come up with anything that's ever changed my mind. Discussing their feelings, tantrums aren't about feelings. And you don't need to validate every single feeling anyway. So yeah, you're modeling calm behavior. I ignore the crazy, I reward the calm, but my body language is, I'm just here, I'm just waiting. Just waiting. No reaction whatsoever, none. Just filing my nails. So it's like they get the idea that this ain't working, and then they just stop. Might take a few weeks, a few months. They might have the odd one here and there, but tantrums will start to diminish in longevity. I always say this wrong. Duration, that's it. Someone gave me that word. They said duration is what you're trying to get at. So they will start to minimize in duration, frequency, and intensity. God darn it. Why can't I remember those 3 words? Just a second. Duration. I'm going to do a video on that. Intensity. I always forget. Duration, intensity, and frequency. Yeah, but they don't stop overnight. It's a basic trait. Some children have them, some children never do. I never had one. My daughter never did. I can remember being little and looking at kids having tantrums, and I can literally remember thinking, what are you doing? Like, I remember thinking, how embarrassing. Like, that would have just been humiliating to me to throw. And my daughter she used to look at kids having tantrums. She just thought it was so weird. Why would you do that? Like, so you're either born that way or you're not. My son had them, my daughter didn't. You said, yes, he's challenging me, and I'm trying to stay strong. Yeah. Yeah, strong and calm. You want to be a strong, calm leader. So it's not about, someone said to me, I'm going to do a video on it. I know I haven't done it yet because it's in my to-do videos. They said to me, does being calm mean being stern? No, sort of, but not really. Being calm means being serious, but not stern. Stern to me implies a bit of anger. There's no emotions, none. When you're disciplining, it's like this. Didn't like what you did. I'll tell you what we're going to do. You're going to mop the floor after dinner. Do you understand? That's how you discipline. That's how you talk. It's completely emotionless. So no, I wouldn't say stern. Stern is more of a that's more stern. No, actually, that's an emotion. So I would eliminate that. Yeah, does that make sense? Why did I say that? Oh yeah, you said strong. So I said, yeah, strong, but strong in that you're calm and consistent and you're 100% predictable. If you get something right 9 times out of 10, they'll remember the 1 time you get it wrong. So pick a battle, pick a rule that you want to focus on, 1 per week. I always say that 1 per week. You can hire me for coaching if you want my help with this. If not, you can try on your own with the behavior board. It's free. That's on my website, Bratbusters.com. It teaches you how to give respect to get it. And it's also about bonding with them. And that behavior board is called a accountability chart when the kids get older, like teenagers, and it's more about bonding with them than it is disciplining them, because you're giving respect to get it. You got to give before you get, especially with teenagers. A lot of parents of teenagers, they're mad, right? Because their teenagers are treating them like crap. And I say, and then they say, well, why should I treat them well with the way they treat me? I say, because you're the adult. You got to give, and then get. Give, get. You got to be willing to give more than you get, especially with teenagers. So, especially when you're learning all this. It's just the way it is. How do you remedy if they've taken over? Start with 1 rule per week. That's what the behavior board's all about. It's 1 rule per week. And then parents, not everyone lately, things go in waves. But lately, parents haven't been asking me this in the first session. And I don't know why. They always used to ask me this. They'd say, right, we're addressing bedtime battles, but what about everything else they're doing wrong? And I'm like, I don't care. So you're working on one, because all you're doing is, it's not about their behavior. It's about your leadership skills. You're learning leadership skills. By the time you get to the 3rd rule, the 3rd behavior, and the 3rd behavior board in the 3rd week, you're starting to learn how to be a leader, and the other behaviors start to drop away. That's how it's all about you. That you lead and they will follow. They respect a leader. So, yeah. Sorry, my back's kicking. It's really bugging me today. I don't know what I did. I did something at the gym late last night. I don't know what. I didn't sleep that well. Serves me right. Okay. Any advice on parenting a 7-year-old girl with ADHD? The ADHD means, like, it's the same. It's just, it might take a little bit longer, a little bit more patience, but that's it. It's the same as every year. ADHD, a lot of parents seem to think it's like almost like a ticket to have kids who are out of control. I never worked with easy kids. I always worked with alphabet kids. I called them alphabet kids because they always had acronyms after their name. This is little Johnny. He's got ADHD, WXYZ, ODD, whatever. That's all the kids I learned all this on. I didn't learn this with my own kids. I kind of got respect when they were tiny and sailed right through the teen years. I just maintained it. So yeah, this is where I learned it all. I worked with all those alphabet kids. That's what this is all. It all came from them. They taught me this. I never learned a thing from adults, maybe my mom, but I never read a book on kids or parenting or anything. Kids taught me all this. I studied them like crazy. From the time I was a kid, I was studying kids. I always found them fascinating because they made sense to me. Adults, you know why adults don't make sense? Because you have to get in their head and read all their baggage from all their 40 or 60 years for them to make sense. Kids don't have all that yet. They're simpler. You can learn a lot by watching kids. Like I didn't study kids ever thinking really I was going to work with them. I studied them because they taught me so much about life. You know, how they look at the world and how they interpret it is pretty realistic because they're looking at it from a completely unbiased set of eyes and a completely fresh brain. So the way they interpret the brain or the world is really pure. That's what I like about kids. Like there's no prejudices, there's no judgment. It's just, you know, they just judge you on how you treat them, which is what we should all be doing anyway, right? So yeah, kids are great. Teenagers are my favorite age. 18-month-old hates being picked up when it's time to leave. Any advice from the kicking and screaming? Nope, no advice whatsoever. It's just a stage. They'll outgrow it. So long as you're consistent, so long as it doesn't work. If you pick them up and they start kicking and screaming and you put them back down, they won. They'll keep doing it. If you pick them up because you have to leave and they kick and scream and you don't put them back down, they'll just stop doing it. Might take a week or a month, but they'll stop doing it. How do you handle a 4-year-old that acts crazy when people are over, just likes attention seeking? That's a sign to me that you're not a leader. Yeah, like if my kids had done that, this is what it would have taken from me. Are you kidding me with this? Like that's all, and they would, oops, sorry. So work on your leadership skills. That's not about them. It's about that they get a free rein because you're too embarrassed to discipline them. That's what that says to me. It says, hey, when mom and dad are around other people, they're different. They don't discipline us. We can get away with whatever we want. So it's a bit of a tell for me. They just don't respect you. Okay. You can work on that. You can get that. I love your advice. It's a first-time mom with a toddler, and I agree with a lot of what you say. Yeah, if it makes sense to you, follow my method. If it doesn't, don't mix my methods with anyone else's, because we're all meant to be used as a package. Like, my methods are all meant to be packaged up and bundled and used together. Like, if you were to throw time out into my methods, I teach calm leadership. Time out, I think, is mean and nasty. I hate it. I think it's humiliating, and I would never do that to a kid. So you can't mix it. You got to follow me or follow someone else. Because it's like dieting. You can't pick and choose what you like from different diets. It's the same with parenting. It's meant to be used all as a unit together. At least mine is. I don't know what anyone else out there is teaching. I stay away from all that. Very careful with that. Sometimes people will start to tell me about what they've been doing. Then they say, oh, I learned it from, and I'm la, 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 don't tell me. Because I don't want to be criticizing anybody. I think that would be really tacky. So that's why I don't know what anyone else out there is teaching. I don't know anyone else out there. The only one I know is the Super Nanny, because I was called on a couple times to do a show like that with teenagers. And they said, watch the Super Nanny because it's like that. And I thought, yeah, how many teenagers are going to be humiliated on national TV and then go kill themselves? So yeah, I said that did not work out. There's no way I would do that. And it never came out. I never saw a show on that. So anyone with their mind for the kids, who has their heart in the right place, would ever do a show like that. Because if you were to humiliate teenagers on national TV, who knows what they can do, right? Anyway, that's the only person I've ever seen as a Super Nanny. Can your tips and tricks work for autistic children? No, they're a specialty. I don't bundle them up in all this. They're unique. They're only in coaching will I give advice on autistic children, because they're all different. I need to know what is working, what isn't working, what's your past, who are you working with now, how old are they, what's your history, would you have any other kids, blah, blah, blah. And then we throw a whole bunch of mud at the wall, and then the next week we see what stuck and what fell off. So what did work and what didn't. It's trial and error. It's not one session. It's at least 3 to 5 sessions. Trial and error, seeing what works. But yeah, that's a specialty. That's like, I deal with a lot of abuse and crisis work and that in my business, but I don't discuss that on here either. That's strictly for one-on-one coaching. You can hire me on my website if you're interested. That's bratbusters.com. By the way, there's a couple of imposters out there who are, I have people who have paid them money, and then they just say their video is broken and they say it's me. So when they're doing the Zoom calls, yeah, my video's never broken. So yeah, just make sure it's linked in my bio, my website, bratbusters.com. But that has nothing, I can't do anything about the scams out there, but yeah. Okay, you're talking about toddlers who hurt themselves or hurt other people when they get violent. I call that violence. When they get violent, it's just groups that all into hitting, biting, and all that stuff. You restrain them. But you don't look, you still ignore. You don't look at them or talk to them, but you just restrain them. So if they're getting violent, you just hold on to them however you can. You pick them up if they're really little, facing away from you, put your hand on the back of their head so they can't headbutt you. And just calmly stand there. Just walk around like you're just looking, like you don't even know they're there. But yeah, you restrain the violence because you don't want them to get hurt, them to hurt someone else, or them to damage property. So you restrain them. You do not do that with older children. You do not do that with a 9-year-old. You do not physically restrain them at all. You only do that with little ones. Someone tried that with a teenager. Oh, geez. Yeah, we don't do that. My son listens, but he always has to have the last word. So, who cares? Give him that. That's a learned behavior. Do you have to have the last word too? I don't know. It's usually a learned behavior. There's a lot of stuff like that is a learned behavior. Like poor sportsmanship is a learned behavior. So yeah, so who cares if they have to have the last word? Could care less. I'm in charge. They can say whatever they want. Oh yeah? Trying to help you remember duration, frequency, and intensity during Why did I read that? Okay, can your tips and tricks work for autistic? No. Okay, sorry. I went backwards and now I'm all mixed up. What do you do with a teen assaults you? That's violence. That's coaching stuff. I can't answer that on here. That's the crisis work I talk about. Yeah, I can't answer that here. I don't know. I don't know your relationship. Things are pretty bad by the time it got to there, so we got to do some repair work. You can't address the assault. You got to do some repair work on your relationship. Parents don't like that. They don't like it when they hire me and I say, I can't deal with that. Let's work on your relationship. You got to bond with them. Show them that you respect them first. How'd you come up with the name Bratbusters? I actually didn't. The troubled teens I worked with, they told me that I had to teach this because they said, you got to teach what you do because no one had talked to them the way I did. And so then they said, because you're really good at busting brats. So that was their term. And then I thought, that's really cute. And I'll tell you why I decided on it. I did a roundtable thing where I did this. It was this government-funded thing. If you're starting a sole proprietorship, and then the government gave you some training about what you need to do to set up a business. There were 20 people in this program. It was wonderful. It was like 1 or 2 weeks long. I can't remember. Anyway, this was like 17, 18 years ago. And there was this one woman in there, and I'm very extroverted. I'm always class clown. So I love it when everyone's having fun and, the instructors and everything. So I'm very extroverted. Anyway, so this woman hated my guts. And she was what I would call churchy, nothing against religion, but very prissy and anyway, very judgmental. She hated me. She said, I just wish we could have some peace and quiet. I wasn't there one afternoon and they said it was the worst afternoon they'd had. She loved it. Anyway, so we did this roundtable thing and I had a few different names for my company and Bratbusters was one of them. Everyone said, yeah, because my thought on that is I don't want to work with anyone who's got a carrot up their butt. I only want to work with people who have a sense of humor because I think it's funny, right? So I'm just trying to lighten the mood. So anyway, went around the table. Everyone's going, oh, Bratbusters. It comes to her and she goes, I hate that. I would never hire anyone called Bratbusters. And I went, sold, Bratbusters it is. If she hated it, I knew I was right on track. She's the exact opposite of anyone I'd want anything to do with. Anyway, it was really funny. So she actually, thank you very much for that. I can't remember her name, but oh God, she was prissy. She was about my age too. It was hilarious. Okay. This one, okay, my 1-year-old likes to make himself gag if I don't take him out of his playpen immediately. That's a stage. Lots of kids do that. Sometimes they'll stick their fingers down their throat and throw up. So I don't know what to tell you about that. It's kind of just a stage. She gives him she gives him, what do you mean? Oh, I've been with my bonus daughter for about 3 years and she still only listens to me, not her dad. She gives him terrible tantrums and she's 7. I would have to work with you on that. I don't know what's going on there. So if you want to hire me, that would be 3 to 5 sessions because it's blended, right? The family. So I would, if you want to hire me, go on my website, bratbusters.com. I don't know what's going on there. I'd have to assess the situation. Toddler who does play smacking. I don't like any of that stuff. I never roughhoused with my kids. I was really silly and goofy. I did a lot of crazy stuff, but I never roughhoused with them. Like I never did wrestling or play fighting or anything like that. And my ex-husband didn't either. We just didn't. And so, yeah, I don't encourage that because they don't know the difference. That's the thing. A hit is a hit. So I would just say no and treat it like that's not something you should do. If you want more information on that, one of my courses is on my website and it's called Toddlers Who Hit. It's not the tantrum one. That's different. This is when they hit when it's not a tantrum. They're actually very different the way you deal with them. A lot of people buy both of those courses, but one is if they hit during a tantrum, that's very different. I don't consider that hitting. That's just a tantrum gone crazy. But then if they hit just for outside of a tantrum, that's the other course, Toddlers Who Hit, Bite, etc. If you're interested, they're little mini niche courses on my website. Yeah, 3-year-old hitting. Well, she's 3. You can put her on the behavior board, say no hurting other people or no hitting. And then there's a consequence every time she does. That's a real sign of disrespect. You got to work on your leadership skills. The behavior board is designed to teach you how to be a leader because you're on there too. Leaders are accountable. You lead and they will follow. It's just the way it works. So we're never fixing kids, ever. We are setting you up as a leader. Like I never fixed kids. I went in, whenever I was working with kids, I went in as a leader and got their respect. And then their behavior was wonderful with me because I was a leader. You lead, they will follow. It's just natural. And then with teenagers, you make them feel good about themselves and they don't want to disappoint you. They like you, so they'd almost be embarrassed by being rude to you, if that makes any sense. So it's not so much lead and follow with a teenager, but it's get respect, and they'd be embarrassed to be rude to you. It would just be awkward. I tell a lot of stories about that in coaching when I'm working with people but I don't want to say a lot of it with you because it's some of it's a little bit more gritty. When I was working with troubled teens, some of the stuff they would say to me, sometimes I swear when I'm imitating them and stuff they'd say, and how I had to turn that around. And but it's doable. But it's a lot more work with teenagers. They're my favorite age, actually. Do you ever guide a toddler through what emotion they're feeling after having No. Once they've calmed down, why would you want to drag them back into it? This is oh, God, I can feel it happening. I'm going to go into it. The mini therapy sessions. God, I hate those things. They are my nemesis in my business. They are just garbage. With toddlers, all this discussing big feelings and everything, they're absolutely for the mom. Has nothing to do with the toddler. Nothing. That is just for the mom. The moms feel good about themselves when they're doing it. They feel like they're doing the right thing. They feel like they're nurturing, but it has nothing to do with your toddler. It is just garbage. Oh, God, it drives me nuts. Just every single day it comes up. Well, why are your toddlers kidding you and doing all that? Well, I'm always discussing their big feelings. Well, there you go. Yeah. I'll tell you the swing story because I can feel myself getting heated. And the swing story explains exactly why I hate all that stuff. So I'm going to tell you that story. And it's a true story, and it has every single reason why I hate these mini therapy sessions with toddlers. And it's the pleaser parent style that's in right now. It drives me freaking nuts because I have to erase all that damage in coaching every single day. And it's so popular. It drives me nuts. Anyway, it's going out, though. I can see it going out. It was really hot 25, 30 years ago. I can see it dwindling out a little bit now, thank God. Anyway, here's the swing story. It explains why I hate many therapy sessions with toddlers and why you should ignore them and why I think discussing all that stuff is mean. I actually think it's mean. Okay, so true story. My son was 2 years old and he had tantrums. My daughter never did. They're either born to have them or they're not. So anyway, I took him to the park. It was empty except another mom with her 2-year-old boy. 2 moms, 2 2-year-old boys, 2 swings, 2 benches. It was 2 of everything. Anyway, so I didn't really know her. I think I'd seen her around, but we hadn't met before. So I said, she was new in the neighborhood. So I said, oh, hi, I'm Lisa, blah, blah, we're talking. And as we're talking, we're putting our little boys into the swings. And they're right side. And they both at the same time pointed to the other one's swing. So we're like, well, sure, let's just move them over. Who cares? Because we just wanted to talk, right? So anyway, so we're moving them over. They both at the exact same time started tantruming. They're just crazy. Toddlers are crazy, right? So we're like, oh, great, here we go. So we took each toddler off to a different bench. My son went to run back to the swing, and I instantly put my arm out just to prevent him from running. And then I didn't have to hold it out there for very long because he knew when Mom took charge, Mom took charge, right? So then he just sits there and he's yelling, he's having a tantrum. So is her little boy. Now I'm ignoring my son. I'm looking up at the trees, the birds, and he knew me. He knew that this wasn't going to work with me. So his tantrum, and it wasn't a big one. He had bigger ones. This was not a huge one. Anyways, but it was still a tantrum. So it petered out after just a couple of minutes. As soon as he calmed down, because I ignore the crazy, I reward the calm. As soon as he calmed down, I said, okay, all done. Let's go back on the swing. He's on the swing, having a great time. The whole time with this other mom, she is talking to her son. Now, if you remember we talked about this, you should be a good little boy. Mommy's trying to, oh my God. This kid was getting more and more upset because she's in the mess with him. She's feeding it. Any attention is tantrum food. It's rewarding it. Anyway, this kid got so worked up. 20 minutes he's screaming and the mom's talking to him, hugging him, trying to point to the swing, trying to divert his attention, trying to do everything. He's gone 20 minutes because she's doing all this. She's feeding it, right? She was almost in tears. She was humiliated. Anyway, she's almost in tears. Finally, he stops and he has the hiccup cries. Those ones. Anyway, then she starts discussing his big feelings about the tantrum. Now, if you just let me, and this kid is looking at her, she's dragging him through the mud, negative after negative after negative. It was so frustrating to watch. And yet I don't tell other people how to parent. It's none of my business unless you ask. You're here, you're soliciting my advice. Anyway, so then finally he finished, and then she goes to put him, it was like 30 minutes that this kid had been dragged through the mud because of all this, her feeding it constantly, then discussing it. Where's the reward for him stopping? Where's the rewarding the calm? He was calm, and then she's still dragging him through the mud, making his life an absolute misery. This kid was miserable. By the time he got on the swing, my kid was tired. He'd been swinging for 30 minutes. We'd had a great time. Her and her kid were just a mess. So that's the typical example of why you should ignore tantrums and why you don't discuss them afterwards, and why there's no need to discuss big feelings. My son's big feelings were having fun on the swing. His big feelings were all negative, 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 negative. You see the difference there? One is in the positive, light, happy zone. The other one is in misery, slogging through the mud. It was a mess. So that's the difference. That's the big difference. I'm always trying to pull them into the light. I want my kids to be happy. I didn't want that crap that poor kid was going through. I saw them lots of times after that. It was pretty much the same stuff. He never outgrew those tantrums as far as I saw, because the mom kept feeding them, kept discussing all these big feelings, dragging him through the mud, the poor kid. Anyway, it's a really good story for that because it says it all. Is it wrong to say, sorry, you're having a hard time, then wait? Why do you need to say that? Why? What? I know you're feeding yourself with that, but why do you need to feed yourself with that? What is that? What is that? I can't figure out the psychology, why that's so attractive. Why do you need to say that? He's fine. I would rather encourage kids to come into the light and be happy and have a fun life rather than the negative, pitying stuff. Yeah, my mother taught me all this. My mom was always a positive person, very cheery, very positive. You know, it was a pretty happy home. I remember going to other people's homes and they didn't laugh and smile as much. I remember being confused by that. I thought, was everyone fighting? Well, no, this is just normal. Whereas we were more chatty and happy, and, you know, because my mom didn't wallow in all that crap. And if I had a problem, I would go to my mom. I told her everything. I'd go to her. I would seek out her conversation. She didn't come to me and say, do you want to talk about your big feelings? God, mother would never have done that, not in a million years. But I used to go up to her and say how I was feeling. And she'd go, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So you see, so it's not that I was suppressed. And believe me, I was not suppressed. My mother was the best listener in the world. I told her everything. She was my best friend. So, and I did that for my kids too. So it's not that you're not listening to their feelings, but you're not bringing it on. Like, let's discuss it. Let's have a therapy session. It's so trendy right now. It's just awful. It's not what kids want. It's not what they need. Okay. I could feel that, you know, I felt that frustration because I deal with it every day in coaching. Okay, I love how you explain things. You make my life so much easier with my toddler. Excellent. Thank you so much. You're very, very, very welcome. We limit screen time to a couple hours per day with a 5-year-old. What do you think about removing that limit? Okay. 5 years old. Okay. It depends. Like, my kids watch TV every single morning because they were getting ready for school or whatever. And then as soon as they were done, they did all their chores. Their bag was by the front door. They were all dressed. Everything was ready. Then they'd turn on the TV. It might have just been 5 minutes. So I didn't have any time limit. But I would just say, no, I think that's enough. Let's go out and play. So I didn't really, when they were little, I didn't really have a time limit. And I never really did. I was just sort of freelance. But what I suggest you do is you have there's 3 different ways of managing screen time or media time. I have a bunch of videos on this, by the way, if you're interested. 2 of them I don't really like, but they're okay. One of them is there's a certain allotted time every single day. Let's say between 7 and 8 p.m. Every single day they can have screen time. That's 1 hour a day, but it's allotted at a certain time. The other one is you can have 1 hour a day, but whenever it works, right? That's another way of doing it. I don't like those. You're micromanaging that too much and you're not giving them really much choice. The one I like is you say, okay, you can have 10 hours a week or whatever, 20 or 5, whatever, 10 hours per week as an example here, and say you decide whenever that is. And you write it up on a chart, like a graph chart, and you have 600 minutes because that's 10 hours broken down into minutes. And then when they are in 35 minutes, you check off 35 minutes, right? And it's very visual. It's easy to see, and let them manage their own time. If they use it all up in 3 days, they go 4 days without it. It teaches them how to have self-discipline. It teaches that you don't want to be micromanaging everything. You want to give them some responsibility. And screen time is a great place to start. I got a million ideas like that, but screen time is one of the best places to start. Okay. So I got a dishwasher going. I don't know why I do that. I usually have the washing machine and dishwasher going when I do a live. I don't know why. It's weird. Where are you based? I'm here in Vancouver, Canada, but no one I work with is. My clients are all over the world because it's done on Zoom. I used to do more in-person stuff because I used to do a lot of TV, local TV, and just they'd call me in as the parenting expert, and I'd have like a spot on the morning show or the morning news, just talking about parenting. And so then locals would see me a lot, so I would be hired that way. But because I stopped doing that because one night some teenager had done, the worst they can do. And so I was called to do the 6 o'clock news and discuss how you prevent that. And they introduced me as the crisis queen. And it just felt so awful. I don't want to be the crisis queen. I want to be I don't want to be a queen anyway, but I want to prevent that. I don't want to clean up messes all the time. You know what I mean? Like I do deal with a lot of crisis in my work. And that's how I started my business. But yeah, that's when I stopped doing the local TV. So now no one in the area hires me. It's all done wherever, because it's all done on Zoom. But that's why most of my clients used to be in Vancouver. Oh, I'm going to tell you why I'm smirking here. How do you get a 20-month-old to come back when you say, come here? I don't think much can be done. If you're out, they have to be on a leash. So if they're out, like if you're out somewhere in public and they are runners, if that's a runner, then they have to be on a leash or a harness or some kind of a restraint. They have to earn their freedom because that's a safety issue. If it's in the house, a 20-month-old won't come when called. I don't know. I'd need an absolute specific situation and to tell you exactly how I do it. I got too many ideas. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I always kind of get that glazed look when I got a million ideas. Like whenever you talk about siblings fighting, I get like that too because I get so many different ideas. But yeah, I'd need an absolute. If it's in the house and it's not a safety issue, I'd need to know exactly what they're doing and what you say. Because I don't repeat myself. I only say, come on over here. It's dinner time or whatever. I only say it once. Because if you repeat yourself, you're teaching them how to ignore you. So yeah, if I say, come on over here, dinner's ready, and they don't, I go and get them right away. I wouldn't say it twice because you're literally teaching them how to ignore you. Oh, goodness. Hey, how do I get my 5-year-old to sleep early? She's tired but refuses to sleep before 10. Yeah, that's the bedtime battles. I'm not even going to answer that because I'm hoping to get that course out. I actually got it written out, things I want to work on tomorrow. So I'm hoping to get that course out and it'll explain it all in that course. I don't want to talk about it right now because I've been looking at it so much. It gives me a headache because it's one of those courses that I've got way too much in it. I've got to cull it. I've got to edit it down. It's just too big. So yeah. But yeah, I have a whole system. If you want my help right now, you can hire me for that. But it should be out hopefully this week. Before Saturday, I'm hoping to get it out. How do you handle a 3-year-old who screams loud when they don't get their way? Remember, it's never about handling the kids. It's about handling yourself. So how do I react or not react when I get a 3-year-old who screams when they don't get their own way? I ignore it. I might say something like, no, and then I ignore it, and then I start taking stuff away. So if they're playing with something and they didn't get their own way, I'd say no screaming, and then I would put that toy away. You cannot put no screaming on the behavior board. Don't ask me why, you just can't. It's too big of an ask. It's like saying, stop being difficult. It's too broad. It's too big of an ask. But in the moment, I would use in the moment discipline with that. I would take something away if they were screaming a lot. Absolutely. My 6-year-old says, you think I'm dumb and stupid when he doesn't listen or pick up his trashing. Okay, my son is 6, says, you think I'm dumb and stupid when he doesn't listen or just, I don't know what you mean. He says, you think I'm dumb when, I don't get what you mean. Okay. Son 6 says, you think I'm dumb and stupid when I don't listen or pick up. I don't know what you mean by that. I'm doing my best here. Maybe you could rewrite that. My daughter's being assessed for autism. Yeah. With autism, I do deal with that in coaching, but I'm always saying, make sure they have therapists or other professionals work with them, because I teach parenting. I teach you how to relate to your child. I don't teach you how to help them get the most out of school or whatever they have to do. I don't do that. I'm parent-child relationship based. I'm home based. So they always have to have other support in addition to hiring me. I'm just about your relationship with your child. I teach you how to be a leader, that's all. Oh, the autism. Yeah, I don't discuss that on here. It's a specialty. I only deal with autism in coaching. It's like I don't deal with abuse victims on here. That's coaching. I don't deal with crimes with teenagers. I don't deal with crisis work on here. That's all coaching, one-on-one coaching. You'd have to hire me for that. It's a specialty. Someone said to me the other day, all you ever talk about is toddlers, which the toddler parents usually say, I don't talk enough about toddlers. So all you ever have you ever worked with teenagers? Well, that's how I started my business, was working with teenagers. And everything I teach, I'm working backwards. I want to get you through those teen years as easy as possible. That's always my goal for you. I know how to get through that. So I'm always working backwards from the teen years. I know how to build that relationship throughout the teen years. So that's what I'm all about. It's not about now. It's about how to get you through the future too. Okay, by the way, I am taping all these now on YouTube. So, and I was going to go back and put all of my old, I've been doing it about 3 months now. I record all these on YouTube at the exact same time. So I'm doing a live on YouTube at the exact same time. But I have all these older ones because I've been doing this for about a year and 3 months. And I thought, oh, I got to go back and put all my old lives. And I thought, they're not nearly as good. I'm way better at these than I was. Like, why on earth would I want all those old ones when I first started doing this? I listened to one of them and I'm like, oh, cringy. Okay. 3-year-old picks his nose and eats it. How to help him stop? He's 3. I would actually put it on the board and say no nose business, because I wouldn't go picks his nose. I wouldn't put that on the board, but I would actually put it on there. By the way, that's something he might do for the rest of his life. They say that some kids just get a taste for the booger and they even as adults, I've seen people driving down the road doing it, adults. So sorry about that. But I would say, if you're going to do it, I'd rather you didn't, but don't do it where anyone can see. It's private. So yeah, good luck with that. I deal with all sorts of stuff in coaching. What you're doing is so important. My mummy heart loves you. Oh, thanks so much for that. I love what I do. I absolutely love it. I hear a lot about this in business, and I've had so much advice. I've actually hired people who I wasted so much money on one person. It's unbelievable. And anyway, total waste of time, because they're all salesy and I think this is a heart business. It's heart first, money second. But I've hired so many people to help me with business and they just don't get it. You can't do this business if it's not heart-based, because it is so personal, right? What's more personal than your relationship with your children? I take this so seriously. This is so important. Your relationship with your children is so important. Okay. How to handle whiny toddler. That's one of those behaviors I usually just ignore. But sometimes you got to teach them what to do instead of what just not to do. So you don't say it like that. You say, may I please it? Like if they say, I want it. And then you say, no, you say, may I please have? Or please, just one word if they're really little. You can just correct it like that, but I wouldn't do it every time. Maybe once a day I would do that. Otherwise, ignore. But you got to be quick. As soon as they're polite, then you got to dive on that. Remember, if you're ignoring the polite also, then it's very confusing for them. So it's a difficult one, actually. Why are some kids naturally easier than the others? Well, it's like, how did the universe ever start? It's our genetics. It's how we're born. It's what happened. I don't even think it's what happens in the womb. I think you're just formed like that. I have 2 kids. One was, my son was my first, and they get that heel up in your esophagus and you can't even breathe for a second. I would push his heel back. You know how you have to figure out where they are and get their foot back in there. and I would push his foot down, get it all folded back up, up against his body. And then he would push back and keep moving around. And I remember thinking when he would do that, I thought, oh, he's going to have tantrums. He's got a temper. And he did. He had tantrums. My daughter, same thing. I'd push. She would pull her leg in and not move for like a whole hour. And I thought she's never going to have a tantrum. She never had one tantrum. So I really believe it's just something, it's naturally what you're born with. Certain things. You can't change, you want to, when we're working on relationships and disciplining, we're only dealing with the behavior, their basic personality, their basic tendencies, their basic nature. They're born with that. You want to bring out the best in those. So you want to meet their needs and manage their wants. And every kid has different needs based on their basic nature, but they still all need how to learn. They need to all learn how to be nice and respectful and polite. That's a no-brainer to me. My son was in grade 2 and his teacher phoned me at lunch. I was in there all the time. She knew me. So, because I was volunteering in school all the time. Anyway, so she phoned me at her lunch break and she goes, you won't believe what your son said. He was in grade 2 and she goes, why are you so nice? And he goes, Mommy makes us be nice. Darn rights I did. Being nice was everything to me. My son really hates school and acts out a lot there. Help. Okay, you're not supporting him at home. What I mean by that is he respectful at home? Have you got systems at home? Does he have to pack up before he gets to watch TV? Does he have to be dressed by a certain time? Like, does he? See, it's very hard for children with no rules at home and no expectations at home to adjust to school. My kids sailed right through it. It was almost easier than being home because I had a lot of sort of structure at home. So by the time they went to school, they didn't know any different. That was their life anyway. So you want to make his life easier for him. Set him up for success at school. That's what that tells me. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing you don't have a lot of structure and leadership at home. That's why he hates it. It's the structure, being told what to do. He doesn't like that. Or having restraints, not being in charge. I could be wrong, but that's what that says to me. Toddler 3 who hits when upset or can't communicate, regrets everything, repeats everything we say. So he's just totally in charge. Get my behavior board. It's free on my website. It teaches you how to set yourself up as a leader and deal with stuff like that. So, but yeah, he's 3. The behavior board starts at the age of 3. Okay, this is cute. Hold, not hit, Stephanie says. I made my twins hold hands for the number of minutes per year. Hold hands for the number of minutes per year. So they're 3 years old. They have to hold hands for 3 minutes instead of hit. So if they hit, they have to hold hands. That's like that Get Along shirt. Remember that? There was a really cute picture that was put out on the internet probably 10 years ago or more. And it was this little boy and this little sister, and they were in the Get Along shirt. And it was this big shirt that had Get Along. This is our Get Along shirt. And they were stuck together and they were both crying. I love stuff like that. Oh, that was great. I love parents with a sense of humor. Like it's just, you get along. Get in your Get Along shirt. I'm not condoning it and that it's the best way to do it, but I think it's great. I love it. It's not what I teach, but it could go the other way. They could kill each other inside that shirt. It's cute though. Okay. What to do if a child learns nonsense from kindergarten, sticking out his tongue, etc. You just say, no, we don't do that here. And then every time he does, there's a consequence. So yeah, you say no sticking out your tongue. And then every time you catch them doing that, they'll outgrow that stuff. It gets boring pretty quick. I remember doing that. I think I only did it once. I had a lot of pride as a kid. I hated doing stuff like that. Do you know in my whole life, I've never given anyone the finger. I just hate that kind of stuff. I just feel, what's the word? I feel trashy or so. I just feel gross. I couldn't imagine doing that. And not to say I'm perfect, but I'm very good with words, but I don't tend to swear or do anything like that. But I remember as a kid sticking my tongue out at someone once. And I remember thinking how awful it felt. I just hated it. And I remember if my mom had seen that, she would have just flipped. She would have, what the heck's wrong with you? Like, yeah, just remember I was no good at that kind of stuff at all. But I saw other kids do it. And they're going to try stuff, but you don't tolerate it. Unfortunately, okay, do you offer coaching for young adult children age 19 failure to launch? Yeah, failure to launch. So if they are still living at home and they're financially dependent upon you, yes. I do. But if they're not still living at home and they're not financially dependent upon you, no. What power do you have? So I was just going to say something. What was it? Oh, shoot. Can't remember. Anyway. What about when a toddler greets her grandparents but with a whiny attitude? I don't quite know what you mean. It depends on how old they are too. Like you can't say much about that when they're one, but when they're 2.5, you say hi nicely before they pick them up. Like they don't pick them up and say hi nicely. That's what I would do. Um, 6-year-old tells me I don't love him because I make him do things he doesn't want to do when I tell him. So he just does that as well. That's just manipulation. That's learned behavior, by the way. You've taught him to do that because there's no way at 6 he would be doing that still. So if my kids had said to me, "You don't," what does he say? You don't love me because you make me mop the floor," I would go, "Whatever," and then I would just completely ignore them. It's just a form of manipulation. That's all it is. But at 6 years old, you've taught him to do that for sure. Are you from Canada? Yes. And I'm also Australian. I lived there for 20 years. That's where my kids were born and raised. It's funny because I was there for 20 years, and I never had one North American friend. I never had one Canadian or American friend in 20 years. They were all Aussies, Kiwis, or Poms. The odd other too, but that was the norm. And I never picked up an Aussie accent. Isn't that weird? I picked up a slang completely. Like all my baby stuff is Aussie because my kids were born there. So like it's all nappies and cots and prams and all that stuff. But now I've had to learn how to say diapers and all that, whereas that doesn't go normally for me. But yeah, I love Australia. I only left because my mother got ill. She was elderly and we were divorced at the time. So I said to my ex-husband, I said, "Look, I want to take the kids and move back to Canada." And he said, "Over my dead body." And I said, "That could be arranged." But I said, "I'm not taking their kids away from their dad." So I said, "I want you to move with us." And he did. 7 months later, we were all here. Was it easy? No. Did it work out? Yeah. That was like almost 20 years ago now. But yeah, it was tough. But my mom needed her. I'm the only daughter. Do you miss Australia? Yeah, I don't know if I could even visit there because I never left because I wanted to. It was heart wrenching. But my mom, she just needed me. And, it was just family first. When you get older, too, family first. When you're younger, you think, oh, I'll be all around the world. But as you get older, your parents get elderly and that. And yeah, family first. And so, yeah, I picked my mom over Australia. And then my kids grew up here and they were too old, but they were too old to go take that. I thought if she lives another couple of years, we'll go back to Australia. But she lived, I think, 5 years. And then she had dementia for another 6 years. So she wasn't quite herself, but still, I mean, I was, she always knew who we were. So I have no regrets moving back here, but I never left Australia because I wanted to. That was home. I thought I was going to die there. I mean, I thought that was it. But I love both countries. It was just another move. It was just so difficult. I could tell you so many funny stories about trying to immigrate over here because I came over here on my own first with the 2 kids, a Canadian sounding mom with 2 Aussie kids on a one-way ticket all across the world. You can just imagine. It was legally a nightmare. We had our irises recorded and fingerprinted everywhere and held up everywhere in offices. And it was a nightmare. Anyway, we made it. I do have a very funny story. I tell it to some clients and they're like, "I can't even believe you told me that." But yeah, I have a really embarrassing experience trying to immigrate over here with my kids at the airport. it's a, it's a bad one. So yeah, immigrating is difficult. And I've done it twice now. It's difficult. Okay. For my dead body, it can be arranged. Well, and I said to him, and it was a big ask. He's Australian. It was a big ask, um, for him to immigrate to Canada. And but I said, "Look, I did it for you, whatever, 20 years ago, whatever it was." And I said, "My mom needs me." And I said, he did the right thing, basically. That's all it was. And we get along fine. There was no fighting or anything. It was just a very, very difficult situation, but he did it. And, I'm very grateful to that, but I moved for him. So even though we weren't together, it's still, "Hey, you owe me." It was for my mom though. I didn't want to move. It was for my mom. She died in my arms. It was just beautiful. And this is a really good life lesson. My mom and I were very close. We were best friends. I told her everything. And as the years went by, we used to email every single day. When I moved back here, We missed the daily emails. We lived 5 minutes away from each other. I saw her pretty much every day, but we missed our emails because we wrote all of our feelings and everything that happened. We started emailing again. So here we were emailing every single day, and I still saw her every day. So that's how close we were. We were extremely bonded. And then we used to laugh and say, on her deathbed, we'll have nothing to say, because every single day we said how much we loved each other, how much we appreciated each other. So anyways, as she's dying in my arms, I said, Mom, you're right. I've got nothing to say. She couldn't talk, obviously, though. I said, her breathing went funny when I said that, so she could still hear. They can't see or feel you, but they can hear you. So I said, you're right, Mom. I've got nothing to say. Isn't that a beautiful thing, that when you're holding your loved one in your arms and you've got nothing left to say, you've said it all? Isn't that kind of, what a nice way for her to go out too, being so, like, you know what I mean? It was beautiful, sad, horrible, but it was beautiful. So it's a really good life lesson. Say it all while you've still got them. My mom always said she didn't care about just feet up in the wheelie bin after she died. She could care less about a eulogy or anything like. She hated all that stuff. She always said, treat me well while I'm here, and I'm proud of the fact I did. And but it's a really good life lesson. Don't take people for granted. Treat them really well, because when they're on their deathbed, you don't want to have any regrets, or you don't want to have anything that you didn't say that you wanted to say. It's just a little life. I'm in my 60s. I've got a little bit of wisdom sometimes. It was a good one, though. It is, because you would regret not saying it all. Yeah, and it was weird too, because she was obviously dying. She was all gray and she was still breathing, but not very often. It was gasping. So I'd never been with anyone while they were dying, but the doctor said, listen, she can't see or feel you at this point. She is dying, but she can hear you. They can hear you, evidently, even after they stop breathing. They don't know how long, but anyway. So I said to her, we're talking, and I said, I love you. And she adopted me. I said, thank you for adopting me. You were a wonderful mother, and all that stuff. All the stuff I'd already said. So anyway, I just repeated it. And then I said to her, I said, I know you can hear me, Mom. And she double gasped. She was only doing a gasp every 20 or 30 seconds, and she did a double one. So she could still hear me. So remember that. If you're ever holding your loved one and they're dying, a grandpa or whatever, they can still hear you. So just keep saying nice things. You want them to go out with that. You want them to go out with all that wonderful stuff. It was beautiful. I was so lucky I was there. Okay. Now, if I'd lived in Australia, I would have missed out on that. I specialize in dementia and end of life. Yeah, I can see why that when, people say, oh, how could you do that? It's awful, but I can see how that would be a beautiful thing. You're helping someone go out in a beautiful way. And I can see how that would be a very fulfilling job. I know that sounds crazy, but I wouldn't have understood that before. Now I get it. Because it's beautiful, it's a beautiful thing to be there while someone's leaving. Who knows where they go after that? I don't know. That's a whole other conversation. Okay. Back to parenting. But that's sort of parenting too. Your parents, right? My father annoys the hell out of me. He's 80 and I didn't want any regrets, so you're right. I need to be patient. Yeah, you don't want to have to live the rest of your life with regrets. Say it all, even if you don't mean it. I love you. You were wonderful. Just go out like that, right? Okay. How do I handle kids who want to play with the same toy but can't play together? I'm going to tell you the swing story. It's a different swing story than the other one, and it's a sharing swing story. I didn't use it with my kids, but I used it with lots of kids. So let's say you have two kids and they both want one thing. Let's say it's a swing. So you're at the park, two kids, one swing. Here's what you do. You say, I'll tell you what, we're going to take turns. Each turn, it's going to be 2 minutes. I'm going to time it. Now, we're going to flip a coin to see who goes first. And who goes first only gets 1 minute, because we're going to cut that turn in half because you're going first. So you flip the coin, that kid goes first, but the next time you're at the swing, the other kid goes first. They'll eventually just learn how to share because you're organizing it. You're a leader. You're setting up a system. You're teaching them how to share, because it's very hard for kids to just learn how to share on their own sometimes, right? So you're teaching them. And then this is when I've done this with clients, they say, next thing you know, their kids are off in the other room. They got a timer in there and they're timing, playing. Then they end up playing together anyway. It teaches them how to play together because they get sick of timing it. So they just play. That's the idea. It doesn't always work that perfectly, but I got other methods too. How should I develop proper consequence? Go check out my behavior board. I got a whole bunch of ideas on there. If you're interested, that's all free. If you want to hire me for lots more ideas and lots more help, then you have to hire me. And it's all on bratbusters.com. Sorry, I might sneeze. I just felt something come in the window. Got some dander. No, what's that called? Hay fever. Okay. I take so many notes while listening to you. I'm going to tell you this cute story. I don't think this mom would be watching, and if she would, she'd know who she was. She was a mom who was really struggling with her kids. So usually when I get parent, and I had her for 3 or 5 sessions, I can't remember which. Anyway, so and usually parents in the first session, I always say, don't waste your money on me asking me questions. I will address everything you need to hear. I'll ask you a few questions, but a lot of parents won't ask questions. And what about this? And what about that? And I say, you'll see, it'll make sense, right? So they asked the most questions in session 1. She didn't ask one question in session 1, nothing. She barely said a word. And I don't know why I didn't ask her why. I just didn't. I just thought she's got something going on here. I'm not even going to question it. So she was just looking at me, and then she'd look down. Then she'd look up, then she'd look down. That's weird. Session 2, the same thing, up and down. And she was really struggling with her kids. I don't remember how old or whatever. Anyway, the 3rd session, she turned up looking like this. And I said, what's the smile all about? And she goes, it's working. And I said, what's working? And she goes, all I did was take notes. She had showed me all her notes. All she did was write down everything I said. And I was getting self-conscious. I thought, why is she not asking me anything? I was getting to the point where, do I have a booger on my nose or on my face or something? Like, I was actually getting self-conscious because I've never had no one not interact with me like that before. All she did was take notes, and she just did it. I don't learn like that. I ask a lot of questions, but her way, just perfect. She just did everything I said, and it was working. I thought, wow. And she just said she's a really good learner. She takes orders really well. I don't know if she was in the military or something. I don't know. But yeah, I've never had anyone who didn't ask any questions at all. And she just took notes after notes after notes. And anyway, and it was working. Interesting, eh? I'm not like that. I wish I was. I'm not like that. We do still have financial control 19-year-old, but substance abuse. Okay, I can't help you with if it's addiction, I can't help you with that. But I can help you work on your relationship with your 19-year-old. That's what I do. I work on relationships. And as they get older and older, it gets harder to change their behavior, but you can improve your relationship. The healthier your relationship is with your young adult child, the more likely you are to influence them to make better decisions. There are no guarantees with that, by the way. What I would suggest you do is you take mental health issues. Yeah, I deal with that a lot. What I would suggest you do is hire me for 1 session only. See if you think I could help you, and I'll let you know too. I'll say there's no point going on because sometimes that happens. Depends on what's going on with you and what you want from me. So 1 session, then you can upgrade to, it would be 5 sessions at least. Then you can upgrade to that. So you don't have to pay extra to buy another 5 sessions. I'll send you a separate invoice. But God, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. Hay fever. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I suggest you do. If you want to work with me, just buy 1 session. Or you can buy all 5, and if I can't help you, I'll reimburse you for 4. Whatever you want to do. I'll leave it up to you. But there's no guarantees with coaching and anything. But I would work my butt off trying to help you. That's all I can do. How to discipline with a speech delayed 2-year-old? Well, they're not hearing delayed. Speech delayed has nothing to do with hearing. So I don't know what you mean by that. And it's all actions with little ones anyway. It's not about talking. It's about actions. Consistent corrective actions. See how good I am at that now? Remember, if you were regular, I could never come up with that. I used to have it written down, consistent corrective actions, because toddlers learn through repetition. I just couldn't come up with those 3 consistent corrective actions. I couldn't come up with it. Now I've got the other one, which is tantrums will lessen in duration, intensity, and frequency. I gotta memorize that one now if you ignore them. But yeah, consistent corrective action. I had a horrible time remembering that, and I invented it. I invented that. I couldn't come off my tongue. Too early to be stubborn at 3 years old? No, are you kidding me? They can be stubborn at 2 months old. My son was like that. And I knew he was going to have tantrums when he was in the womb because he would push back when I'd push in and he'd move around like crazy. And he didn't have a lot of them. He wasn't what I'd call challenging child at all, but he had tantrums. But yeah, he would get upset if he couldn't get on the boob. You know, when you're first learning, both my kids had really poor sucking reflexes, so I had to use the shield. So he would get really frustrated and turn red, and then he'd start crying and couldn't even get on the boob. And so that was just him. And he was like brand new baby. Whereas my daughter would just patiently wait. so, and so I thought, oh, she's never going to have a tantrum. And she never did. So yeah, you come out of the womb with a temper. Oh, I really feel like I'm going to sneeze. It's like some kind of a hay fever thing went up my nose. Oh, it's like pins and needles. Okay, I'm going to get going. Actually, it's been over an hour now. I got to get going. I got so much to do. So anyway, if you want to hire me, you go on my website, bratbusters.com. If you want one-on-one Zoom coaching, if you want to buy one of my courses, they're also on my website. My big one is full right now, unfortunately. But what I'm doing is I'm working on downgrading it into no coaching included, because it does have group coaching with it, but that's my time and I'm just running out of time these days. So I'm going to have it available without the group coaching. That's how I'm going to manage that. It's brand new. I've only gone through completely with one group so far. So anyway, it's going really, really well. And then my free behavior board's also on the website. Oh, I gotta sneeze. Ah! Anyway, I don't feel like I have to sneeze. I feel like I'm going to be sneezing 20 times in a row. You know that feeling? Anyway, I got to go. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back again tomorrow. My website's bratbusters.com if you want to know more. And I'm back here every day doing a live. And I'll do some videos after this today too. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye now.